Okay, today is the 10th class of our philosophy seminar, and we will discuss our relationship with God, or our relationship with the divine. Now, when I use the word God, that means anything that you perceive God as, anything that you perceive in any way that you particularly experience the divine. But let me say some general things. First of all, we're talking about a primal cause. We see in the universe that everything that happens, or that everything that exists, has a cause. This law of cause and effect. We know that there is a cause for this harmonium, or for this table, or for this moqueta. Okay? So we see a universe full of galaxies, full of planets and suns and stars, and we say this must have a cause. We see life, we see human beings, we see animals, we see plants, we see nature, and we say this must have a cause. Okay? So we're talking about the power, or the intelligence, or the consciousness, or the source from which all of creation has come forth. Secondly, we're talking about a sustaining power, because there is not only a cause of what we see, but there is a power sustaining what we see. There seem to be laws in motion. Just as there is a power sustaining my physical body at this moment, a consciousness, and that consciousness gives birth to millions of cells, and millions of cells die in that consciousness, and all cells are cared for, are given birth to, are cared for, and then die within that same consciousness. All that I do without even thinking. I give to those cells their food, their oxygen, the hormones they need, the antibodies that they need. I take full care of all of those beings that I create in myself without ever thinking about it. And those beings exist within me. So we're also talking about a consciousness which is sustaining the universe as we know it. Whether it be that sustaining process be a mechanical or a conscious process. We're also talking about the unchanging essence in the center of everything and everyone that we see. Every being, every human, every plant, every animal, and even every metal and crystal and every thing that exists. If we analyze, for example, this body that we are seeing now, we'll see that it's made up of cells, and that those cells are made of complicated molecules, and those molecules are made up of atoms, and those atoms are made up of electrons, neutrons, and protons. When we get to this level of perceiving this body does not differ from the cement or the carpet or the wood or anything else. There's no human protons or human neutrons. All protons, neutrons, and electrons are the same in all of the universe, regardless of whether they exist in a human being, in a bird, in a piece of earth, or in a piece of air. So all of the universe is one at this level. There's no differentiation when I perceive the world at this level. The differentiation starts when my mind begins to focus beyond this level. And if we look into these neutrons and protons and electrons, we discover that they are made up of energy. And there's the whole concept between nuclear energy, of nuclear energy and of the atomic bomb, that matter can be transmuted into energy, and also that energy can become matter. So we might consider that matter is condensed energy. We also realize that these atoms these neutrons and protons and electrons are united by energy. There is an energy which binds them together and keeps them as they are, just as there is an energy which binds the atoms together to make them molecules, and binds the molecules together to make a cell, and binds the cells together to make tissue, and the tissue together to make organs, and the organs together to make a system, an organism. And eventually that energy will cause the organisms to come together to make a harmonious society or a harmonious world. At one time all cells were separate. There were just one-celled beings on the planet. And that evolved now so that we are now million, trillion-celled beings in which these cells are cooperating so that we can think, walk, create in our lives. So what we are seeing actually in looking at the universe is energy. It's energy which has become matter, which is being organized by energy again. So there's nothing but energy around us. Even this cement is just energy. It's condensed energy which is being held together by energy. Natural forces of the universe. If we go even deeper, however, we see that this energy has a certain intelligence, because it combines itself in a certain way as cement, in a certain way as plastic, in a certain way as wood, in a certain way as flesh, as a human being, and there seems to be a different organizing force in a human being than that of the chicken, or that of the corn, or that of the watermelon. And so we see that behind this energy is this thought form. A thought form which creates the energy form, and the energy form creates the physical form. So that matter is organized by the energy form, and the energy form is created by the thought form. And behind the thought form we find consciousness. This consciousness we call God. This consciousness which gives birth to the thought form, which gives birth to the energy form, and which creates the physical form. So it's just the inner nature of whatever exists, the consciousness, the unlimited consciousness which can express itself as a human being, as a dog, as a goat, as a plant, as a mineral, as a sun, as a galaxy. So we're talking about one universal consciousness which is omnipresent and which is manifesting itself. Now, in the example which I use frequently, because I think it's a good example, of the movie theater, we have the light before it flows through the film, okay? And that is the omnipresent, unchanging, divine consciousness. And as it passes through the film, it obtains form. It becomes an energy form. It hasn't impinged itself yet on the screen, so it's not yet visible. It's the energy body which is created by the film, by the light passing through the film, but it's still light. And when it impinges on the screen and we see it and it becomes physical, this is the physical body, but it's still just light. So this body is divine consciousness. It's condensed divine consciousness. My mind is condensed divine consciousness. You see, it's like steam, water, and ice. It's the same thing. It's two molecules of hydrogen and one molecule of oxygen. It's the same reality. It's just that you can see it as ice, or as water, or as steam. So we have physical, energy, and consciousness. Okay. So when we talk about God, we're also speaking about this universal consciousness, which is the center, the reality in anything that we see. So it's the cause of whatever we see. It's the sustaining force in whatever exists around us, and it is the essence of whatever exists. The cause of whatever exists, the sustaining power of whatever exists, and the essence of whatever exists. And to understand the sustaining power, again we use the image of the screen. That is, at any moment, if that light stops passing through the film, the image will cease to exist on the screen. So the very fact that there is a being, it means it is being sustained at this moment, that there is a direct creation taking place. We have a false perception of creation when we think that we were created and then we have stopped being created. We are being created. We are being projected at this moment from the divine source. We are divine projections into the physical realm. We can never cease to have that contact. The idea that we are separate is an illusion. Just as the image on the screen can never be separate from the light which is creating it. This idea of creating something and then not being separate from the creator is one of our greatest illusions. So it's important to understand creation as a continuous process and not as a one-time thing and then now we are separate from the divine. We, at this moment, are a projection of divine consciousness in the physical realm. And everything around us is the same. And from the moment that projection stops, then that energy is withdrawn into other realms, into the non-physical realms, and this physical body dissolves, it decomposes. It has no reality in itself. It's just a temporary wave of matter. You know, it's a focal point through which divine consciousness is attracting to itself the matter that it needs to create this physical vehicle. From the moment this consciousness no longer needs this physical vehicle on the material level, it withdraws itself and the physical body decomposes. It has no reality. And it's a shame that we live our lives so focused on this such a temporary phenomenon. Now, discussing our relationship with this consciousness or being, there is no correct and there is no wrong relationship. This relationship, just as every other relationship, is a personal matter, and each person has the right to develop the type of relationship that they would like to have with this universal consciousness. But it is good to have a relationship, because most of us don't ever think about it. It seldom crosses our mind, except when we have problems. And so if we have problems, we start asking for help. So it is good to develop this relationship. Now this relationship is evolutionary. It is evolving from a relationship and we see the divine as something outside of ourselves to perceiving it as an essence inside of ourselves. From a relationship and we see the divine as something very far away and distant to something which is close. It's an evolution from seeing the divine in specific places, such as in churches or temples or mosques, and seeing it everywhere. It reminds me of a story in which a monk was wandering and he sat down near a temple to eat an orange, and he had his feet in front of him, and the feet happened to be towards the temple. And this monk came out, this priest came out very angry, because in India it's very rude to have your feet towards anybody. You wouldn't sit with your feet out like this. And he said, how could you sit there with your feet towards God's house? And the wanderer said, I'm very sorry. Please tell me where I can put my feet where God is not. And of course, the priest understood something very clearly there. That God is not limited to this temple. God is everywhere, and anywhere he puts his feet, God is going to be. Also, it's an evolutionary process from seeing God as a judge and as a wrathful God to a loving God. That is, seeing God as something distant who has created me, who judges me, who will punish me, to seeing God as a father, as a brother, as a friend, as a lover. Now there are three words in Sanskrit which describe this relationship. Dvaita is the first stage of our relationship. Dvaita means dualism. In this case, we see God as a creator, as a judge, as a punisher, as something very austere and far from us and unrelated to us. In the second case, it's Vishta Advaita, which means relative monism, that is relative monism, which means that there is only one being, in which we experience God as a father, as a friend, as a lover, as a source. Christ used the image of I am the vine you are the branches. Okay, so the branch is definitely united with the vine. It's a part of the vine. It's not this separate thing, you see. And Advaita, that is without dualism, that is, there is only one. We realize that there is only one being, and that our relationship with the divine is like the relationship between a drop and the ocean. We are made of the same thing. And when the drop is dropped into the ocean, we become one. So that there is only one consciousness, one divine being, and that we also are that divine being. All sense of separateness from the divine is dissolved. Now this is considered a heresy in many religions. It's why they crucified Christ, because he dared to say that he was one with the divine, something which was definitely against the Jewish religion at that time. Christianity now does not allow anyone to say this. It's considered a great heresy for someone to say, I am one with the divine. I mean, the very church which was created about a man who declared this refuses to allow anyone else to say that in the process. But this, according to Vedantic philosophy anyway, is the ultimate relationship in which we experience that we are one with the divine. So we are evolving from one stage to the other. I would like to share with you a very beautiful poem by Khalil Gibran from his book The Madman. It's the last page of this 2 pages that you have, Perceptions of the Divine. And now, this is probably not the way he expressed it. I couldn't find the original English version from which we made the Greek translation, so I retranslated it from Greek back into English. I think it's pretty accurate, but some words he may have used differently. But the meaning is definitely the same. Okay. In the old days, when the first uncertain words came to my lips, I climbed the holy mountain and spoke to God, saying, Lord, I am your slave. Your secret will is my law, and I will always obey you. But God did not answer, and passed like a very heavy storm. Later, after 1,000 years, so you can see here that Gibran believed in reincarnation, I again climbed the holy mountain, and again spoke to God, saying, Creator, I am your creation, made from the clay which you formed me, and I owe everything to you. But God did not respond, and like 1,000 swift wings he passed. And again after 1,000 years I ascended the holy mountain, and again spoke with God, saying, Father, I am your son. In grace and love you gave birth to me, and through love and worship I will inherit your kingdom. But God did not respond, and as the fog which covers the far hills like veils, he passed. You see, 3,000 years have passed now. We see that this being is approaching God in a different way each time. And each time, although God does not speak and he gets no direct answer, God's presence becomes milder. It starts out like a heavy storm. It becomes 1,000 swift wings. And then it becomes like the fog which just veils the mountains. You see, God's presence is becoming softer and softer for this being. It took 3,000 years. And again, after 1,000 years, I ascended the holy mountain and again spoke to God in this way. My God, you are my destiny and my fulfillment. I am your yesterday and you are my tomorrow. I will become you. I am your root in the earth, and you, there's a mistake there, are my flower in the heavens. And together we evolve before the face of the sun. So now it says that I am destined to become what you are. I am your yesterday, you are my tomorrow. I am your root in the earth, you are my flower in the heavens. Then God leaned over me and whispered in my ears sweet words. And as the sea embraces the river which runs into it, he embraced me. Then, when I descended into the valleys and fields, God was there. He didn't need to go to the holy mountain. It was his whole idea that God was up on this mountain. And it was his own creation. I have to go up there to find God. And that God is this distant thing. He's this judge, this is creator. And And then when he realized that I am one with this being, then he received the experience of the divine, and he realized that that is everywhere. When he went back down from the mountain, he realized that it was all his own imagination, that God was far away from him. And there's a very beautiful poem which describes so simply this evolutionary process in our relationship with the divine. So gradually, our experience of the divine needs to be a daily experience. It's not something which is limited to church or temple or mosque on Fridays or Saturdays or Sundays, depending on when you go to which. It must be a daily presence. I mean, that reminds me much of India, where it's difficult to find a taxi which doesn't have incense burning, which doesn't have an image in the taxi itself. It's difficult to find a store owner who won't say a prayer before he opens his store. His first thing he'll do is go to the shrine that he has in his store, light some incense, light a candle, pray, and then receive his first customers. There's a very beautiful celebration in India in October, a feast of 9 days towards the Holy Mother, in which everyone brings the utensils of their living to be blessed. So the taxi driver will bring his car, the musician will bring his instruments, the woman will bring her pots and pans, a doctor will bring whatever instruments he uses. Everyone will bring the instruments of their trade to be blessed, because their daily life is their divine life. That is, everything I do in my life must be connected in some way. It's not like, my religious life is here for these 2 hours on a Sunday morning, and then the rest of my life is unrelated to that. It's very important to make it a part of our daily life. I'd like to share with you a few parts from the Upanishads. From the Mudaka Upanishad, there's a small paragraph. It says, "As the spider emits and withdraws the web, as herbs sprout on the earth, as hair grows on the head and body of man without any effort, so from the imperishable being the universe springs forth." So, as a spider emits and withdraws, we have to, from that, the universe is created from its own self, from the imperishable being. It's created from the being and withdrawn within the being. And this is conducive with the Big Bang theory, that there was a moment in which the universe was created and is expanding. That will reach a point in which it will start contracting again, and that it will all come back into one. As herbs sprout on the earth, that the beings make themselves, in a way. It's like a cooperation. On one hand, these beings are a part of this imperishable being. On the other, they do entertain a certain amount of freedom as herbs which grow from the earth. And then, as hair grows on the head and body of man without any effort. None of this requires any effort whatsoever. Another example which is used is the flame. That is, we can light from this candle 1 million candles, and the same flame will exist on all candles without diminishing this flame. This flame will get no smaller, even though 1 million candles have been lit from it. So the universal consciousness is not in any way diminished by its creation of whatever exists. It remains the same, whether creation exists or does not exist. And there's no way lessened by creating or absorbing into itself. Another example is the oil in the sesame seed, from which we make tahini. It says you cannot see the oil, so you cannot see the divine in the human being. But by a process, you can separate the oil from the seed. Whereas you can't see the butter in the milk, but by a process you can separate the butter from the milk. So in the same way, the Upanishads say that this divine consciousness is permeated in all the being, just as the oil is permeating all of the sesame seed. But by spiritual practice, by meditation, by exercise, by discrimination, you can separate the divine consciousness and become aware of that as separate from the body. Because at some point we're going to leave these bodies, and these bodies are going to decompose. We are separate from these bodies. Many people want to say, I am also the body. I am not also the body. I am a consciousness which is temporarily occupying the body. You would never say you are your car. You would never say, I am also my car. Because you know that the car is a temporary vehicle. You're going to get in it, you're going to go, and you're going to get out. And this body is a temporary vehicle. We are not also the body. We are a consciousness which temporarily enters the body, uses it for as many years as we use it, and steps out of it. So we are not also the body. The body is a vehicle which you are temporarily using. We need to respect it, care for it, keep it healthy, keep it clean, so that we can do our functions on the earth, execute our functions on the earth, but we are not it. It's very important to make this discrimination. There's a very beautiful description in the Bhagavad Gita concerning God. What is God? Beginningless, well beginning, transcendent, eternal, beyond all that is and that is not. All hands, eyes, feet, heads, and faces are His. There's no face which is not His, no hands which are not His. All things exist within Him. Life of the He is the life of all senses. There could be no sense without this divine. There could be no awareness of senses without this divine consciousness, but is not affected by those senses. He sustains all life functions. He lives in the live, that is in those who are living in bodies, and the lifeless, even those living without bodies. He is subtle beyond mind's grasp, so near and yet so utterly distant. Undivided, He seems to divide into objects and creatures. Just as the light which goes through the film, although is one light, can appear as an army of 5,000 fighting another army of 5,000, but there's only one light creating both armies. I mean, there is no other source for the bad guys. We have to realize this. There's just one source. It is creating the bad guys and the good guys. No one can be created from another source. There's not a separate light creating the bad guys and a separate light creating the good guys. One light goes through the film and it creates everything. And the earth they're standing on, and the heavens above, and the trees and the animals. There's nothing in the buildings. There's nothing which is not a manifestation of the one light. Undivided, He seems to divide into objects and creatures. Projecting creation forth from Himself, He upholds and withdraws it. He projects creation and then withdraws it. He projects it, He upholds it, and He withdraws it. He projects a human being, upholds a human being, withdraws a human being. Projects a dog, upholds the dog, withdraws the dog. It's just a consciousness going into matter, coming out of matter. There's no death. And we cry for nothing. We fear death for nothing. We should fear birth. Birth is a much more unpleasant experience than death. Death is an experience of liberation from physical limitation, and birth is a process of going from a much more unlimited state into a very limited state. And everyone who has experienced through hypnosis, we will discuss this as we discuss immortality in a few weeks, the death experience is almost always a negative experience, and the birth experience is almost always a negative experience, and the death experience is almost always a positive experience. He is the knowledge in the indwelling heart, and he is the witness of the body-mind. And it goes on in the Bhagavad Gita to say, he who has experienced Brahman directly and known it to be other than Prakriti, known it to be other than the material world and the gunas. You remember the gunas, the three gunas? Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva, will not be born no matter how he has lived his life. Now, so we are in a process of evolving our relationship with God, which is moving from a focusing on form to a focusing on the formless, from limiting the divine to specific places or times to experiencing the divine continuously in our lives. This movement should not be done intellectually. I have met some people who reject worshipping a form of God because they consider it a lesser type of worship than seeing God as consciousness or energy. But they are affected by so many other forms in their lives. They worship the forms of political people, the forms of movie stars, the form of the opposite sex, the form of money. And so they want to evolve through a formless type of spiritual path, but they're not at all free from form. And so it is useful for most people to be able to focus on the form in the beginning. The form can be very limiting after a certain state, but it's very helpful until a certain state. It's just like stairs, you know. The seventh step on a stairway is no use to me when I'm standing on the first step. But when I get to the sixth step, it's very useful, and the first step is not useful anymore. So it's not a matter of right or wrong, good or evil. Focusing on the form is a very good first step. All forms are doorways to the formless. By focusing on the form, I arrive to the formless. And this is because the true forms of the divine all are universal forms. For example, when you worship Christ as Christians, Christ says, if you love me, you have to love everyone. Our wife doesn't tell us this. Our husband doesn't tell us this. He says, if you love me, you will love only me. Okay? And don't love anybody else like you love me. Whereas Christ says, if you love me, you will love the person in jail, you will love the needy, you will love the ill, and you will serve them, because I am in them. You see, this is a universal form in which this being doesn't say I am me, it says I am in all beings, and you cannot love me if you don't love these beings. So the focusing on this form universalizes us. It forces us to focus on all beings through love and through service. So one way of growing is the path of devotion. Love for a specific form and the gradual transference of that love and devotion from that particular form to all forms, and service then to all forms. A second way is called Tantra, in which we see all forms as manifestations of the divine. Now many people have limited Tantra to some kind of sexual activity in which we experience unity with the divine through erotic contact with our partner, seeing our partner as a manifestation of the divine. But Tantra goes beyond that. Tantra means to stretch, which means to stretch the imagination, to stretch the mind in contact with everything. So Tantra also means seeing food as a part of the divine, seeing what we drink as a part of the divine, seeing the music that we listen to as part of the divine, the trees that we see, that is, so that through the senses, you see, whereas ordinary religion tells you that senses are evil. You should not enjoy sex, you should not enjoy too many things, you should not enjoy food, you shouldn't enjoy anything around you, okay? You have to be focused only on God. Whereas Tantra says you can discover the divine through your senses, because everything is an expression of the divine. So when you're making love to your partner, you're making love to God. When you're eating God. When you're drinking God. When you're listening to music, you're listening to God. You see. So this is Tantra. Now Tantra, it's a bit difficult in our society because you have to be quite pure in order to be able to manage this ability to stretch this vibration to a higher level and not experience it on a lower level of vibration. It's a system which existed and was created in a time in which people were much more focused spiritually, and society in general was much more ethical than it is today. There were not so many temptations and lower vibrations as there are today on television, magazines, and this kind of thing. And then there is the path of Vedanta, which says no form could ever express the divine. Vedanta, Advaita. Yes. So we have the negation of all forms. So we have the path of devotion, which is basically Christianity, which says you focus on Christ. Or if you're Hindu, you focus on Krishna. Okay? Or Rama, or depending on your particular deity. Then there's Tantra, which says all forms. And then there's Vedanta, which says no forms. Okay? So all are true. All are possible paths, you see. And you have to see which path is suitable to you. And it's not impossible to combine them. There are moments in the day when we will feel like communicating with God as a form, and we'll use the name of Christ or Mary or Krishna or Rama, depending on our religious background. There are other times in which we will see God through the food we are eating, through the music we are listening to, definitely through nature. It's very easy to practice Tantra as we walk in nature, seeing the divine through the beauty of nature. And then there's Vedanta, which says not this, not this. God can't even be the form of Christ. That's an illusion. The form of Buddha is an illusion. The form of Krishna is an illusion. God is beyond form and name, which is true. And even in a book which is very focused on the repeating of Christ's name, the Peripetias Anosproskeniti, the pilgrimage. I forget how it's in English. It's about the holy prayer, the prayer of the heart, in which the Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. At some point, this monk is taught that if he really wants to focus on Christ, he has to see Christ as light and not as a form. And he should not limit, because when I focus on Christ as a particular, what form? The form, there's a black Christ, there's Hispanic Christ, there's German Christ, Christ was obviously a Jew, and you see him in all kinds of, you see him with blonde hair, you see him with black hair, you see him any way you like. What Christ are you going to focus on? Okay, and these are obviously our own images which are created, and that it's much better to see Christ as light, because light is something which can exist in all beings. Now, the reality is that there is no other source of fulfillment that will give us permanent happiness. Because we are not experiencing our direct connection with the divine, are seeking to fill that emptiness through relationships, through money, through objects, through pleasures. No problem in all of this. It's not a sin, it's not evil, but it's never going to give us the ultimate satisfaction that we're looking for. We can have all of these. There's no reason to give them up. There is reason, I think, once in a while to do a retreat, to go for 3 days by ourselves, 5 days by ourselves. This is useful, because then things come into perspective. But parallel to all these relationships, we need to develop our own relationship with this source. And by developing this relationship, we will have an inner sense of security, an inner sense of self-worth, an inner sense of strength to face life's difficulties. We'll be much less dependent. It's one thing to love someone or use something in our lives. Another thing is to be dependent upon it. When there is dependency, then we suffer. We've already discussed that. So there's a story in the Indian scriptures which says one time, God was just very tired of being bothered by all people's requests, and he says he called his various advisors. I don't know why God would need advisors. And it says, where can I hide so people will not find me? And so one suggests, well, why don't you hide in the bottom of the ocean? And God says, no, I can see the future. They will find me there. He said, why don't you go to the moon then? He said, no, I see that they will come there too. And so they, after about an hour of suggesting various places, this one meek advisor says, you know, God, I think I found the place you can hide where they'll never find you. In themselves. So God hid himself in our own, the center of our own being. So we're searching for him everywhere else, on these holy mountains, in these monasteries, in these various places. And he's just in ourselves, okay? And it's not even a he, okay? It's a she, it's an it. It's beyond gender. It's a shame that we have to put a gender on it, okay? So what can we do to develop this relationship with this divine consciousness which is within us? In the same way that we would develop any relationship. In any relationship we need to communicate on a daily basis. We want to love. We want to give and to take in their relationship. We want to have the other person in mind. We want to be true to the other person. We want to visit them often. Any relationship that I want to develop, I will do all of these. It doesn't matter if it's a person, a dog, a cat, or the divine. Now, as far as visiting often, God is omnipresent, so there's no particular place that we have to go. But visiting here means turning the radio of our consciousness to that station. Okay, God is present, that divine consciousness is present in this room, but are we focused on it or are we focused on something else? So basically meditation is the process of visiting, in which we stop focusing on external stimuli and we focus on this inner consciousness. Now, as far as communication goes, this is called prayer. Prayer is simply speaking with God. Now, prayer could be traditional written prayers, or there can be an informal, sincere communication with a divine being. Both have their value. The traditional prayers have obtained a certain amount of power throughout the years because a thought form has been created around them, because they have been used by millions of beings. And so they have obtained a certain amount of power, those words. On the other hand, if you just mechanically say them and you're not feeling anything, there's no great value. And so there's also a great value in just speaking honestly, you know, like you're speaking to your best friend, very simply. And it's interesting that in Greek, in which we have the respective you and the familiar you, that God is spoken to in the familiar. I mean, you would think this great being, we speak to him as Sas, you know, but we don't. It's you. It's familiar, you see. And so this is very important, that the Greeks, and I think I don't know another language how they do it, but God is in the familiar. It's not in the formal, you see. And our prayers need to be this way. We have to think of God as a friend, as our best friend in life, our psychologist and our doctor and our healer and our best friend whom we talk to. Now, in a prayer, we might want to express our gratitude. We want to express some needs. We might want to ask for some guidance. We might ask some questions, perhaps, about life. And there's a small story about this. There were two angels. I don't know if we talked about this. Two angels. One angel was sitting on the cloud doing nothing, and the other angel was going back and forth to earth continuously without stop. And at some point the angel sitting on the cloud says, well, what is your job? And why are you rushing about so much? And he says, well, my job is to collect all the pleases from people, all people's requests that I've forgotten. I take them from the people and I take them to God. And he says, well, what is your job? You're sitting here, I don't see you doing very much. He says, well, I collect all the thank yous from people, you see. So, many more requests and very few thank yous. You know? Yeah? Another story about what we pray for. There was a merchant who had 4 wives, and he went on a trip. And he wrote a letter to his wives just before to return, asking them to tell him what they wanted him to bring back. And so the first wife, the youngest one, says, I want you to bring me some very nice dresses and jewelry. And the second wife said, I would like you to bring some medicines because I'm not feeling well. And the third wife says, well, I'd like you to bring some books. I'm very interested in learning. And the fourth wife, which is the oldest of all the wives, said, I don't want anything. I just want you. Just bring yourself. I want you. And so he came and he gave to the first wife the nice dresses and jewelry. She was very happy, very ecstatic. He gave to the second wife the medicines, which she took, and she was very pleased. And he gave to the third wife the books, and she started reading them, was very pleased by these books. And after a few weeks passed by, they noticed that he wasn't coming to visit them. He was living with the fourth wife. And then they started to complain, what's happening? Why are you staying with her and not coming to visit us? He said, well, I gave to each what they asked for. You asked for clothing, I gave you. You asked for medicines, you asked for knowledge, I gave you. She asked for me. So there is also an evolution in what we can ask for. We will get what we ask for. We can ask for health, okay, we can ask for affluence, we can ask for enlightenment, we can ask for purification, we can ask for guidance. And so it's useful to think in our prayers what we would like. Also, we can ask for ourselves. Even asking for our own enlightenment is selfish, actually. We're not asking for the enlightenment of this child in Africa. I mean, it's also, in the same way, ego-centered. So we can all ask for others. We can ask for the prisoners, for the young people that are taking narcotics, for the orphans. We can ask for the ill. We can ask for the poor, for the homeless. So we can ask for ourselves, we can ask for others, we can ask for world peace. So we might want to evaluate what we are asking for, what kind of relationship we have, and what we are asking for. So we have meditation, we have prayer. We also have what is called in Sanskrit nama japa, that is the repetition of a name, or repetition of a prayer, which can be done as we're washing dishes, as we're walking, as we're driving, anything that we're doing mechanically. At that time we can repeat a prayer such as, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, or may Lord bless all beings, or any kind of prayer or name which is suitable for us. Just one moment, please. Okay. So this constant repetition of some prayer or of God's name, that as you see God, doesn't matter, purifies the mind. It stops the mind from going to negative thinking, from thinking about useless things, and it raises the level of consciousness at that point, and it creates a connection. So we have meditation, we have prayer, and we have this other kind of prayer which we do as we're walking around, whatever we're working in the garden, anything that we're doing, waiting for somebody, rather than allowing the mind to think of all the silly things it usually thinks of, to be focused on the divine. Then we have chanting, in which we chant various spiritual chants, which also have the power of vibration, the sound vibrations, which are usually with many vowels, and it has effect on the physical body and on the consciousness itself. And then we have the meaning of the words, which connect us with higher states of consciousness, because the meanings are very beautiful. And then we have this emotional stimulation, the stimulation of higher emotions rather than lower emotions, the opening of the heart when we chant. And if we're chanting with other people, then we also experience the unity and this very high states of unity and love when we chant with other people all together. So we have meditation, we have prayer, we have the repetition of the name, and we have chanting 4 very powerful techniques for connecting with the divine. Besides that, we have the reading of the scriptures, depending on our particular religion, both the teaching of that religion, but also the lives of the saints, of the being, the higher prophets or saints of that religion, which are like examples to us, and allow us to relate to our lives, to their lives, and to get inspiration and faith how we might be able to face some difficulties in our lives as they faced many difficulties usually. Another aspect of this relationship is to dedicate our actions to the divine. That is, when I do something, to offer the result. Because one of our main problems in life is our attachment to the result of our actions. For example, we try to bring our children up right. Okay? One thing is to try, one thing is the motive that we have, the love that we have, and the effort that we have, and the other thing is the result. The result may seldom be 100% what we would like in life, or any other effort that we make. So another aspect of this relationship is being able to surrender the result, not the effort. The effort is ours. The result, however, belongs to this divine being who is wise and is able to calculate all of the karmic effects, what each being needs for its evolutionary process. So placing our children's health, surrendering the results of our economic efforts. That is, this allows us to relax. It's like we have this very good friend whom we know is controlling the universe. We know that we have to make our effort, but we're saying, I have faith that you are going to let justice take place here. So it's like we are doing what we can to create the reality that we want, but we're saying, let your will be done. This is surrender. Surrendering the result. Actually, when you look at it clearly, we don't have much choice. The only thing that we can do is make our effort. From there on, the only choice is to be angry and upset and fearful, or say, you know better. I'm not saying give up the effort. The effort we will continue to do until we die. But rather than have so much anxiety about the result, a part of faith is having faith that the result is wise. I mean, there is a piece in St. Paul's writings which says that not even a piece of hair can move on a man's head without God allowing it. Which means that nothing can happen in our lives without this divine being which is controlling all the universe, allowing it to happen. Now there's a big difference between allowing it to happen and causing it to happen or wanting it to happen. I'm not saying that this divine being is causing it to happen. We are causing it to happen by our choices throughout our incarnations and by what we have come to learn. I'm not saying that it desires it to happen. I'm saying that he's allowing it to happen in this dynamics of all these laws of the universe so that we can evolve and grow through that. So this has been allowed to happen to me because it is just. It is the just result of all of my previous actions, thoughts, and words, and it is exactly what I need for my evolutionary process because I can learn through this. And it is wise. It is just and wise. So it is a part of this relationship with the divine is believing in its justice and its wisdom. We, however, are responsible to continue trying to create the positive reality we want to create, but to be relaxed about the results. Another way is to see ourselves as instruments of the divine, or to desire to become instruments of the divine, and that is to take energy through our meditation, our prayer, our repetition of the name, and our chanting, and then transform that energy into action. So that in our lives, just as the plants take energy from the sun and transform that energy into sugars and carbohydrates and fats and proteins, giving us fruit and giving us grains and giving us the beauty of their existence. then human beings are transformers of spiritual energy, as the plants are transformers of sunlight. And we take spiritual energy and we transform it into creative energy, into love, into creative power, into actions in our lives. So each of us is a spiritual transformer in which we can receive more and more energy and use this to beautify our lives and the lives of the people around us. And this is our function on the earth. We are co-creators. And I would say that we are the instruments of creation from now on. People say, I don't believe in God because why doesn't He correct the problems on earth? But we are God. We are God's fingers on earth. He has no other fingers to correct the situation on earth. We are the fingers in earth. Through us, society will change. It won't change by itself. There's no, I mean, Christ came and left, Buddha came and left, Muhammad came and left, Krishna came and left. None of them had the power to change society. This divine consciousness does not, has given free will, and it does not take it back. We, of our own free will, have created hell on earth, and we, of our own free will, have to create heaven on earth. So we are the fingers of the divine consciousness in the physical world, and this is our function, it's our purpose, and this is why we're here. This is what we're doing here. It's to awaken to this consciousness, and the simplest part is just being loving to our family. And then if time is left over, serving somewhere in society. There are many refugees here in Greece. There are also homeless. It's become a modern city now. We have homeless too. There are poor. There are orphans. There are old people. There are blind people. There are also orphans who are handicapped. So many aspects of the divine. This is all God. This is all aspects of the divine, which we can give a few hours a week. And so another aspect of developing this relationship with the divine is serving the divine through its various forms which are needed. And this is a basic statement in the New Testament, in which Christ says, when we get up there, in there, whatever it may be, God will say, well, you can't come in because when I was ill, you didn't help me. And when I was in prison, you didn't come and see me. And when I was poor, you didn't help me. And we'll say, well, when were you like this? He says, well, everyone that's like this, I am these beings. I am all these beings. So I would say a major way of developing our relationship with God is through selfless service. That is helping people around us a few hours a week, or as many hours we can, without, of course, any attachment to the result. So, in conclusion, our relationship with the divine is a very important aspect of our lives, which probably needs to be in some way enhanced, strengthened. Ways to strengthen it are through prayer, through meditation, through repetition of the name, through chanting, through reading of the scriptures, through reading of the lives of those before us who have embodied the particular faith that we are born into or choose, through serving others, through surrendering the results of our actions to the divine, in any other way which you find suitable and helpful to yourself. I find that retreating into nature occasionally increases that relationship significantly for me. And if there's no people to talk to, then you're forced to talk to God, because there's nobody else around. You know, I spent 3 months last winter by myself on an island, and you know, there was no one else to talk to, so I found myself very frequently communicating with God. It's a very good solution. You develop this relationship much more in these situations. Just to look at the papers that you have. First of all, you have this questionnaire about your relationship with God. You might want to look through that and try to answer those questions. And if you like, we can speak about it next week. It says, I feel God as a father, a mother, a protector, a friend, a judge, a creator, a lover, as universal consciousness, as love, as the laws of the universe, as energy, as life, as light, as all beings, as love is the second time there, as a form, such as Jesus Christ, as justice, as harmony, and as anything else you'd like to add there. So how do you perceive God? And number 2, in other words, God is for me, and you can fill that out. Question 3, I feel closer to God or to the divine when. So you think of the moments in which you feel closer. Maybe in nature, maybe in church, maybe when you're praying, maybe when you're dancing, maybe when you're making love. B, I feel distant from God, divine when I'm angry perhaps, when I'm feeling guilty, when I'm worrying, when I'm fearful. Some of my beliefs are that God loves me regardless of what I do or not. God punishes me when I'm not okay. God is not aware of my presence or is not concerned about me. God is watching me and caring for me every moment. I am very far from God. I am unworthy of God's love or help. I am close to God. God will protect me. There is a divine plan. We are all parts of the divine. God loves the saint and murderer the same. God lives within me in all other beings. I am divine. God is the inner essence of whatever exists. God exists more in church and temples than in other places. God loves Christians or any other religion that you belong to more than members of other religions. 5. What I believe that God or the divine asks of me. What I ask from God or the divine in our relationship. What I believe I can do in order to improve my relationship with the divine. Now, write a letter to God, to the divine, as you perceive him, her, or it expressing. To whom you are addressing yourself, describe how you perceive the being you are writing to, how you feel towards that being, any gratitude which you feel for positive or even unpleasant aspects of your life, how your life is going, questions which you would like answered about life, yourself, others, and especially about decisions which you have to make, help you would like, and anything else you would like to express. So, if you feel like it, for next week, try working out this questionnaire about your relationship. Now, this other page is various perceptions of the divine from the Bible, from the theologian Bishop Callistus Ware, who was an English citizen but a teacher of Orthodox Christianity. He's a professor and bishop. Then from some scientists, Albert Einstein and various other scientists. Then we have a piece on the second page from the Sufi poet Jalaluddin Rumi, a very nice piece. And then also a number of pieces from Satya Sai Baba. I think you will find these pieces interesting. We don't have time to look at them now. Let's just look at the pieces from the Bible itself. The kingdom of God does not come in such a way so as to be seen. The kingdom of God is within you. So we realize that this is not some place. It's a state of consciousness. These are the words of Christ according to Luke. Surely you know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit lives in you. These are Paul's words. Christ is in you, which means that you will share in the glory of God. And Jesus answered, it is written in your own law that God said that you are God's. We know that what the Scripture says is true forever, and God called the people gods. So there are a number of pieces from the New Testament itself which affirm the presence of the divine within us. Okay. So let's do our meditation, and then we'll see if you have any questions. Okay. You sit with your body straight, your eyes closed. Begin to breathe more slowly and more deeply. With each breath, become more peaceful, more relaxed. You can begin, if you like, with the alternate breathing, alternating nostrils so as to balance the energy. Inhaling into the solar plexus, holding in the heart center, exhaling up through the neck, and suspension in the forehead. Focused on your breathing. Now you can gradually allow your alternate breathing to complete. Allow your breathing to be natural. Make sure that your body is relaxed, that your legs are comfortable. Allow your abdomen to be relaxed. Allow your solar plexus to relax. Allow your shoulders to come back and down in a relaxed way. Allow the face to relax, the cheeks relax. The eyes, allow your eyes to relax. And allow your forehead to relax. Now take time to focus on the divine in your own way and to communicate sincerely, naturally, with the divine. begin focusing on your chosen object of concentration, bringing the mind back again and again to that. gradually relax your body position and your concentration. Okay, I wonder if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to say about today's class, about our relationship with the Divine. Okay, remember that next week we won't have class, and we will have the following. Okay?